see you back there, Chris, man.
The intro is fire, bro. Like the track is fire. I was freestyling in my head while the beat was flowing.
We
The
seen you.
track is fire, bro.
I know, right? I feel you. I feel you. Hey,
Whose is
but
that? Is that Vix or something? Whose is that?
no, this some random off
Look,
off
look, look
YouTube.
it up there. I'm already getting racially profiled by Antoine. I
Hey,
told you. Even he know the difference. You see how he proved my point?
yeah.
Different kinds of black.
Hey, all different types. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Elevator Dialogue here on the Uncle Junior Network. I go by the name of Uncle Junior, and today I'm just one of the Wolfpack members. Today with us we have none other than the mind coach himself, Mr. Dwayne Dwyer. We have Mr. Accountable Masculinity, the Code, Victor Vinziant, Antoine. I like my hair slicked back today. The other artist, Christopher, Mr. Gamal, back with us again today for another show. Appreciate you being here, brother. All the way across the table, Mr. Chris McCullen. Hope I got that right. He ain't running, he ain't walking, but he is rolling down the street. Back with us again today. And ladies and gentlemen, the smartest man in showbiz, Mr. Dr. Thomas R. Easley himself. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
Better than amazing.
I'm well.
Blessed, they say.
Blessed, they
Real
say.
well.
He
Happy to
said
be
they
here.
say. Good coach, Coach Lane. Coach starting to see them seeds starting to sprout.
Yeah, man, I love it.
Antoine don't have no clue what we talking about either.
Hey, it's okay, man. Just go with it.
None.
Exactly. It ain't a bad thing.
Not easily, sir.
What's going on, Antoine? Good to see you, sir.
Hey, I want to thank everyone who's watching today, everyone who took time out of their busy schedule to be with us today. I appreciate you. Thank you. I want to thank the chat already in advance. Go over there, make some comments, say some things, ask some questions. Also want to thank the military folks that may be watching, that may not be watching. We salute you. We understand that sometimes your job is hard, so we just want to pay our respects. As you know, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock, Elevator Dialogue, Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? Tune in with us. We appreciate you being here. And one more thing I had to say. What was it? Oh, man, we're about to get into it. So today we are going to start a 4-part series. So in order to get all of it, you have to tune in each single week. And just to let you know already, we already have the next 4-part series in the shoot. And I think it's probably going to be better than this one. So if you're going to like this one, which we sure you will, you're definitely going to like the next one. Today, what we're going to do, we're going to start off with the show for this week is going to be the whole show topic is about navigating modern relationships. And today, specifically, this week, we're going to be talking about defining modern relationships. Okay, so one of the things that we thought about, we felt was important was that we define what a modern relationship is to kind of sort of set the baseline for the rest of the conversation. So I'm gonna start off with the baseline, and if anybody want to interject, adjust, or anything like that, just let me know. And then if not, then we're gonna roll on with it. But here we go. A modern relationship may challenge or reject traditional norms. Gender roles may be more fluid and equal, and communication, consent, and mutual respect may be emphasized. Partners in a modern relationship may prioritize individual growth and self discovery and may be more open to exploring non traditional relationship structures such as polygamy. It could also include couples that actively negotiate and redefine the traditional roles. Modern relationships may also be characterized by a greater degree of freedom and flexibility in terms of gender roles, communication, and emotional expressiveness, non-traditional structures, and expectations around monogamy. So with that being said, anybody have anything to add or take away from that baseline as far as what a modern relationship is? Nope. We good to go. All right. Well, the first question of the night is this: how have the concept of relationships evolved over time? And anybody who want to jump on it, please feel free to do so.
Uncle
Now, when you
Junior.
talk relationships, are you talking the male female dynamic
Yes,
or
sir.
relationships in general?
Male, female.
Okay, I'll shut up.
Can
Well,
I, can I ask a quick question, just real
Yes,
quick,
sir.
to Uncle Junior? When in this, the reason I'm jumping in is because it's back to the definition. Did you say anything like about different faith practices? You know, people coming together and having different faith practices and stuff. As a sign of or as a indicator of a modern relationship.
No, sir.
Okay, then please, before anyone, I just want to say that I like to add that to it because I think that you see a lot more of that, today too, like multiple faiths, in a relationship. So I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Told you everybody got different focuses. It just depends on where you start.
All right,
So
I'll kick things off. All right, so back to the question. Let's see there. Hit me with the question one more time.
how have the concept of relationships evolved over time?
All right, so just looking at the difference, in my opinion, just from how I view the difference between traditional versus modern relationships, and I think there's different parts of a relationship that can be considered to be modern, and some forms of the relationship can be traditional. The way that it's changed over time, I'm just really looking at, there's a lot of focus on independence from women as far as just going after, higher incomes, pursuing higher education as well too, which kind of goes away from the traditional roles of like where women were the homemakers, right? And what that does is just really changes the dynamic of the household. And I did just a little bit of research before the call, and I found an interesting stat that said that in like 2 years, the increase of women being the breadwinners went from 38% to 47%. So like that's a huge jump, right? So more women just taking on more responsibilities, and I have family members where the men is at the house taking care of the kids, doing the daycare, doing the cooking. So I think that's a change in itself as well too, where some men are willing to accept a different role from being that breadwinner. So that right there is one that I want to call out. Yeah, I'm sure everybody has different opinions on it. Some people may feel like, some men may feel like they have to be the ones that are going out there and being that breadwinner.
I'm gonna say it differently. I'm gonna say today the modern woman makes money. Today she's not staying home and cooking and making cupcakes and stuff like that. All right. She has a life that's evolved. Now she can make her money anywhere. She realized how beautiful she is, and she can go on social media and she can use that beauty to gain what she needs to gain and to gain the attention you're not giving her, to gain the intention to get over you quicker if you leave her. She has more avenues and more access to better herself, right? And today the modern woman doesn't need a man to make money, although they want their money. They don't need it, right? So that has evolved. Women aren't staying home cooking. Sure, there are the ones that traditionally do that, but they have been outrun and outdone over the modern woman today that is out there going to get it. And today their focus is on the bag. It's very clear and it's very obvious.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. I definitely agree with you. Yep, definitely more women are stepping up and taking on more responsibility outside the household.
Now I'm gonna jump in and I'm gonna be, I guess, adversarial with this one because I don't agree with it. I'm gonna just tell you up front. I don't agree with it because of not only statistics say there's been a decline in the family structure because the woman has gone to work. The woman has gone to work, and not only has she gone to work, we see in our community where we've become dependent on certain things like welfare systems and such, where you have to remove the man out of the home. So now you have boys and girls being raised without a father, or without a father figure in the home, and the father figure becomes a negative, and it becomes a source of discord. And when you look at history, the woman had to go to work after World War I because it became an industrial nation. And she was the one packing bullets and bombs and stuff like that because the men were at work. And when he came back home, she was already working, and women's liberation came about and attached itself to the civil rights movement. And that thing flew where she said, I don't need a man. And that mentality where I don't need a man has circumvented these young girls to where they say, I don't need a man for anything, just to make a baby, and I don't even need him to help me raise it. So what you do is you raise damaged children from birth and then try to fix them when they get older. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox and see what you guys think.
I got a little bit more to add behind what Roland was saying, and like we said backstage, I was saying backstage, history and economics. I think understanding of history and economics will always, kind of attach itself to whatever definitions that they try to, use or define any guidelines by. So, if history and economics are considered, then you will realize how transactional our relationships have become, because we have partnered out of trauma, out of different start points, different needs, different survival modes. And in those different survival modes, people have a different priority. Some people have an economic need. Some people have an actual physical hunger need. It's about resources. So when you're in survival mode, you're always in conversations about things that you need to get handled in your life. That's why so many people are focused on the financial portion of relationships. So quick to talk about money, and the reality is too, I made a Facebook post about this. If you remove all of your foundational needs that are associated with economics, meaning your health is right, you don't have any issues with keeping your utilities on, your children in great shape, your personal life is great shape, and all your immediate people are in great shape. If you take away relationships, food, money, and sex, you don't know what type of conversation you can have with most people. A lot of people don't have a lot to offer, because if they're after a transactional satisfaction, then they're going to do what the history and economics tell them to do. So until you get out of survival mode, all of these different definitions of modern relationships are going to just be transactional in nature, So I think that portion of it, where it comes down to some level of survival and sustenance, is always going to have a huge variable in it. And I think that when you look at it that way, people are going to act on selfish outcomes in relationships. You're going to have an environment that's like that, and what we got present.
I'm going to piggyback off of Vic. Relationships have become transactional. Relationships nowadays, from what I see, they're no longer about building something bigger than the two people in the relationship. It's about what one person can get out of it. Most of the time, it's the woman. That's just based off of what I've seen, and that's based off of the conversations that I've had. The men nowadays are understanding that they have to become this man in order to even attract women, and women have been taught that they just have to be themselves to get a high value or a high status or a man that'll take care of them. They just have to be, and the man is supposed to accept them, and the men are saying no. Flat out, the men are saying, I don't have to accept you for the way that you are. The whole take me as I am movement is dead. You have to be what I want. And if you are not what I want, then don't expect this movie that you got playing in your head that only stars you. That's really what I've seen. And the fact that we've been taught that we don't need each other, when, to be honest, we do. More than mainstream media will put it out there. We need each other, no matter what they say. I don't know if it's a cash grab to keep us apart like this and to keep us fighting like this, but either way, man, it's stupid, because nobody's winning. Everybody's losing. and the family structure is dying, and everybody knows that the cornerstone of any community is the family. That's what
agree.
I've seen, and that's just based off, and like I
Unhealthy
said,
competition.
yeah, that's just based off of the conversations that I've had.
Yeah, I agree. I think that in the past, we were kind of taught that we did need each other. Like, hey, you need this person to build, what I mean? You need somebody to raise your kids. You need somebody to pay the bills. And it's like, like Chris said, it seems like nowadays the concept of relationship has changed. And I'm not even mad at the transactional part, because I think that most relationships are transactional anyway. It's just depending on what you're trading. You know what I mean? There's always a trade-off. Um, Maybe you trade more time to spend with your spouse to have a better relationship, but there's always a trade-off. You know what I mean? So I don't have a problem with the transactional part, but I have a problem with what you said as far as what is being transacted. You know what I mean? As far as, you want to trade if I'm paraphrasing, you want to trade a basic woman for a man who has resources and value,
I don't think it's
and it
that.
don't fit
Yeah,
in
I
there.
don't I don't I don't think we're trading that. I think that for some
Those are
strange
$40
reason,
relationships.
right? For some strange reason, women seem to believe that those type of men that you were describing are in abundance, and they are extremely rare, and everybody's competing for them. Everybody's competing for them. That's why there's this big push for men to be productive and to be the best men that they can be, because they know if they become the best men that they can be, then their options open up. I think in our community, the big thing is we've heard the message about how we really wasn't doing what we supposed to do, and we're starting to do what we supposed to do. But the side effect that the women didn't think about was the fact that once we do what we supposed to do, all of our options open, and they're not the only option that we have. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think all of this is like, I'm just thinking back, like all of this is just influence, right? This is like, like where does this come from? How is the family structure dying, right? Is it, social media, what women can do for themselves in social media? Is it the music? I'm thinking about the music that I used to listen to when I was a kid. Like I used to live by Jay-Z Big Pimpin'. Like I used to rap that song out loud as nothing you can tell me, right? And I think that influence, how I view relationships during that time period versus, I don't listen to everything. I'm very conscious of what I consume from a music standpoint. So it definitely, affects the way that I go into my particular relationship. I think we have so many things influencing us that is probably creating those circumstances that what we consider to be a modern relationship. But it's so much influence out there. That's the
So
fact.
I can agree with the influence piece, but the problem to me is we're influencing from the wrong perspective. Like when I look at this question, I see two things: the concept of relationship and evolution over time. Evolution is going to over time is going to happen regardless. The issue has always been the concept of relationship. Even when you think back to being a child, Big Mama and all them other folks, like their concept of relationship is what worked then. But as you started to grow in understanding what relationship was all about, you can look back and say that it was wrong. Let's be completely transparent and honest for once. You have never seen a perfect relationship in your life. I don't care who you can name right now. Mom and daddy probably was good together, but they weren't perfect together. So the concept of relationship is the starting point of issue. Your parents look different than my parents. And then when we come together, you're coming with the core competency and understanding of your parents. So now what you're trying to do is impose in my life what your parents taught you, and then vice versa. And then what you look at now, evolution over time, well, we talk about, the woman's working and the man's working and nobody's home taking care of the kids. Well, let's be completely transparent. In most cases, most families can't afford for a parent to stay home and take care of the kids. Everybody got to get out and work so they can give up half of their paycheck for daycare. So as I look at this question, you got two ideas. the concept of relationship, which has been flawed for years, and evolution over time. So the influence is coming from a bad place, and then evolution over time is making it nosedive into a certain perspective to where one person may feel like, oh, you need to work to get my attention. And you got people like us who come around and say, no, I don't. No, there's another one of you around the corner if I really want that, but I'm good. I'm okay.
And I think,
but you have to agree in relationships today. Let's take generally, women want more, and they want more because, like I said, back then it was great. No man really wants to. No woman today. This whole modern about woman staying home and man taking care of all the bills. I don't know what world you living in. Things are expensive today. Both people work, unless you're looking at that 1% or the 10% within that 1%, whatever you want. Both people need to work, right? Now, the only time I would say I would take care of my wife and all that sort of stuff is if, you have a kid, she has to maternity leave, you pick up the slack, you do all your thing. But you can't ask a woman today to give up her career. Even if you're a multi 1%er, yeah, but the average woman is not going to give up her career. You can't provide for like that. I mean, mortgages are high. Gas is only going up. Things are going up. The modern woman today wants a guy that has his own and more. Back in the day, my father's day, my mother was happy with her one paycheck, my father's paycheck. My mom was a retired nurse. I mean, come on. But today, nah.
The issue isn't the fact that they want that 10% man that will take care of everything. And if she has to work, then you might have to deal with some things because she has to work. The problem is most women want that 10% guy, and they think that 10% guy is everywhere, and he's not. So the men that can actually provide them the kind of life that they have that really might not be in the top 10% are falling by the wayside. They're invisible to these women. This is just based off of what I've seen in the conversations that I've had with the men and the women. You understand what I'm saying? The whole dynamic is shifted. And the real big thing is a lot of the women out here want that 10% dude and don't want to give that 10% dude nothing and expect that 10% dude to be faithful to just them. And
So,
it's
Chris,
never been like that.
Chris, a woman could want what she wants, say what she wants. Most of them don't even look the part. They don't even look the part of that thing, right?
Which further proves my point.
Most of them want a guy making 100K. They don't even know what a woman looks like that walks out of a man's car making 100K. And
which furthers my point.
90% of them don't look the part.
That furthers my point.
You can want what you want, but don't expect delusional results because it ain't gonna happen.
And that's the issue.
It's not gonna happen. And there's only so many of those guys to go around because
that's the issue. That's the issue, and that's the part of the game that we really wish that the women would understand. Like, there aren't a lot of those dudes like that. You understand what I'm saying? But they think that they're in abundance. And a lot of women really think that just because they can go get a check or they can build a business, that they're on the same page as a man. So they would rather compete with the dude instead of working cohesively to build something bigger than them. That's the de-evolution of relationships as far as I've seen.
What you got, Roland?
Okay. I'm understanding where the rhetoric is coming from, but I think that first and foremost, the relationship of how we're looking at it is the only place where you'll see it starts and makes a baseline at the bottom trash level. You can't make a baseline out of a relationship at the trash level and say, well, most of the people are like that. No, most people aren't like that. Now, I'm one of those people that I take care of all the bills up in here. Ain't got no problem with that. My wife works. She's a realtor and she got a salon. I ain't got nothing to do with that money. Don't want to do your thing, whatever. Everything is taken care of here. She can stop working a day and everything go keep rolling here. I ain't got no problem with that. Now, when we look at the lower I think we split it wrong when we say women don't look the part or a man as being hide this, that, and the other. I think what we do is we feed into that narrative, and whether a woman is a size 2 or 6 or 16, I think what we need to stop doing is looking outwardly to say that's the woman for me. because what you get is trash, because inwardly she's trash.
Dude, you can't see inwardly. Something's got to get you over
That's
there.
why you develop relationship. You don't say now everybody like
Something's got to get you over there. Something's got to make you cross the street, Roland. What are you talking about?
Hey, Antoine, you're about to agree with him, but you're passive aggressively
I
agreeing
agree
with
with you,
him.
Would you
Let him
stop
finish his
that?
thought.
But what I may like 16. You may like 6. But if I never
Lord have mercy.
give those people a chance and get to know them, because I'm looking at
No.
what they, come on now, everybody on here, if Oprah came and say, babe, let's make it happen, because she's a billionaire, her money speaks better than her looks.
Let's go with Oprah without her money. Who's gonna do what?
Nobody. Now,
Exactly.
not just off the
Like
rip.
I said, y'all agreeing with each other,
Right,
Antoine.
right. Nobody off the rip. But that's why you get to know people. And what we don't do nowadays, we don't get to know people. That's why women out here getting these big booties and these breasts and all their lips and nose and all this stuff done, walking around fake with butterfly eyes and all this stuff. Because men are looking at everything. Look, I want this, I want that. It's just another toy for him. And when a man matures and realizes it's not about me playing with these toys, but I got to get something that works with me, like Chris was saying, that works with me and not against me, then you can build on something, not just have something to have on your arm.
So you know what, then let's this is probably a good segue into the next question, right? What are some misconceptions about the modern relationships then?
Thinking they understand it.
What's
What do you
that?
mean?
They're actually believing that they understand it.
Oh,
There is nothing that supports the concept of a modern day relationship. So it's just best defined by whatever story everybody has in their head. There is no source document that you can go to except for Google, Merriam-Webster, or whatever that defines how to behave in a modern day relationship. So it's a fallacy.
And I think when we,
I think there's some common things.
I think certain things, if we stop looking at people by what they own, because like right now, I think my phone bill, my cell phone bill, back in the day, my grandmother ain't had no cell phone. They had a house phone. It was in the kitchen and you got that 100-foot cord. But nowadays I'm paying for about 6, maybe 7 cell phones. I'm paying a car payment for cell phones. I don't have to have that. But because we say, well, we need this and we need, no, you don't. You don't need 3 cars. I got a bunch of cars in the driveway and all that other stuff. I don't need all that stuff. I don't need all the phones. But because we've become materialistic and made our wants our needs, now that decides what we have to pay for. Just like daycare. Daycare is like $200 a week now. And that's crazy for me. When I was paying, it was $125 or whatever. But so now when mama goes to work, daddy goes to work, and I definitely don't agree. I'm not the person that's going to say, well, daddy stay home, mama go out there and beat feet with, just like when mama out there taking orders from me and this, that, and other. Then she come home and you think she want to take orders from you? Ain't going to happen. She like, I earn my own money. Now pretty much she has nuts just like you. So unless you get you one who's on her stuff, she's looking at it like, I get just as much as you. That's when it becomes a competitive thing, instead of her saying, man, we're working together on this. I understand that I'm working, but we're working for a purpose. We're working for a goal. But all of this is our stuff, not just my stuff, your stuff, what you bring to the table. Well, I'm bringing the table. You bring the table, you can go eat by yourself.
Common misconceptions that is actually 50-50, or it's actually whatever it is. Everybody's working off a different scale because they are trying to, justify their own personal utopia. And then again, I like to use, terminology to define behavior, and it's an unhealthy competition, at some point for some people, especially if there isn't a clearly defined set of boundaries and rules. And that's the concept of what a relationship is. It's an agreement. It's intentional, it's deliberate, but it's conditional as anything else. Because the minute that a variable that's important to one person changes, the relationship changes. So modern relationships are really just conditional relationships like any other ones. You know what I'm saying? So it's an agreement between committing your resources, time, or whatever you value to the same vision as someone else, you know. And at one point, that always has some intersections where you're gonna have competing visions. So you just got to figure out how much competition you want to have before you decide you want to be a team. Because at some point you have to take off the descriptors of it, and it has to just be a relationship, something healthy and something that's purpose driven for something bigger than yourself. So I think that's on the individuals, and behavior defines what that relationship is too. You know, like you can pick plenty of examples, you know, and some people define that as, you know, being the standard they want. I've seen plenty of people say, I want to be like Bobby and Whitney, you know, so, and some people think they Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You can pick and choose whatever you want to mimic. All things are true.
That's, I mean, okay. I mean, I just think that a modern day relationship is, there are some general common things in them as far as women now have evolved and doing their thing. I think the whole staying home, being cooking and cleaning and all, that's out the window. That's gone. That's in my father's days. That ain't coming back. And it's only going to get, you know, it's only going to progress from there. So at least we can agree that that's how it is today. The average woman doesn't cook anymore. The average woman isn't, I mean, people are ordering out for Thanksgiving and bringing the food home. Nobody's, I mean, it's very rare you see a woman say, I cooked everything. They do. I'm not saying there's not out there, but it's not a generally thing that people talk about. That's all I'm saying. Those are general things in a modern relationship.
I would also say this too. You can only have the relationship that you can afford, and they don't have anything to do with money. It's about your individual value. You can only attract the relationship that you can afford based on your value. So if you're messing around with people in low frequency situations, like for instance, this is why I talk about history and economics being so important. See, somebody can decide that they can't relate to you with outside of sex, jobs, and money, but they may connect to you on history. But if you don't have a respect for history, you're not going to be able to connect with that person, because that's how you get to them. Okay. So like, if you don't have an understanding of history, you probably don't have an understanding of economics, or don't have a care, you know? So if you don't understand those things, then you can't understand the purpose of that particular individual, because there's been plenty of people that have gotten together, and then when their motives actually got revealed, you could just tell like what the other who was there for themselves. You see what I'm saying? So like, this is why relationships are conditional until, you know, that the terms don't fit somebody's needs, till the juice isn't worth the squeeze, until, you know what I'm saying, there's a little return on investment for time, energy, money, and attention, you know? So people come into relationships with whatever's organic to them, what they think is important to them, their own personal code. If their code get violated, then it doesn't matter what you think you came to the table with. You see what I'm saying? This is why you can only have the relationship that you can afford, and that's based on your criteria for your life. You got to work on you. This is why I say men have to focus on themselves.
Right.
Until you focus on yourself and get self-complete, you cannot attract a relationship that you desire. Period. But you don't know what your boundaries are yet.
A man on his purpose. Let's say a man is making 40K. That's a solid man. He's got his bills paid. He's got a White House, small house, picket fence. He's doing good. He's established in his own right and only growing, and will continue to grow. Ain't no woman coming into that man's life and trying to lead or compete. That man will look at her sideways and go, not this man. I don't care how much you think you're making, but over here, this is how it rules. Because he's solid within himself. She can come and cohabitate and create with him and do all that good thing. But rest assured, that man making 40K that's got his bills covered and he knows he's living a good, humble life, she is not competing with him, because he isn't even going to hear it, because he's solid in his thoughts and in his thinking. Yeah. But they can create together. He's looking for that woman. He's looking for that partner. He's looking for that. And when I say partner, I don't mean the whole, business thing. I mean partner as in sharing everything with her. But she's not competing with, even if she's a doctor, you think she's going to change that man's mindset to think, what, because you're a doctor, you're going to look down on him? He's going to look at her like, really? I mean,
I think also too, as you start talking about definitions, like with modern relationships, we also have to define what competing is. We're not saying somebody's going to work and then coming back home and bragging. Like the scenario that Roland gave is an element to the whole atmosphere competition, where you're trying to justify who's doing what, and then you're keeping score. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But like the whole point and the concept of what an unhealthy competition is like, what's the prize if you win? What are you trying to prove? Like, the need to be right is dangerous for both people. It's not just on one side, because if you come in with your set of principles and morals, and at some point they meet a level of contention, and it's something that you compromised on, it's going to show up, and it's going to be valid for both people. You see what I'm saying? So, like, this is why I say all things are true, and you have to have your own statistical understanding of what's going on in your environment. That way you can have the right expectation management, that you can set your boundaries. You can't worry about the other person. And that's what I think happens in these modern relationships, is that they always try to manipulate and control the other person. They use their influence for the wrong reason, their understanding for the wrong reason. See, like, this is where you start getting into exploring information, digesting it, applying it, and actually practicing it in repetition and being deliberate about it. But if you just have a economic understanding, a transactional understanding about each other in a relationship, you don't have the in-depth conversations that go with trying to define what makes a cohesive unit, or whatever, or whatever you guys are trying to do together. You see what I'm saying? Again, still comes back to history and economics. For me, you can only have what you can afford.
So that's why I started off the way I did, because at the end of the day, everything we're talking about right now is really superficial. I don't care if you're talking BBL or how much personal money make, how much money a person makes. All of that is superficial, because the thing that drives wedges in between people is behavior. A person's belief system is revealed through their behavior. That's why I said the common misconception about these modern day relationships is that they understand it. They don't understand it. They make it up en route. And from person to person, it actually changes. So it all becomes kind of big. I'm going to go off of what you said. I'm sorry on that side. I'm going to go off what you said. Like, it's a form of manipulation. Like, if you don't have what I want, then I don't even have a conversation for you. And then if you meet my said criteria, and trust me, I'm okay with a person's personal preference. But if you meet my criteria, and that criteria that I have, if it benefits me, then we're in relationship. But then you get in relationship with this person and realize that their core competency of connection is trash. And then you end up living with a very beautiful person or a very handsome person, and ultimately you're miserable, because after pretty goes out the door after hello. So as time evolves, and then you get out of what I tend to call the honeymoon stage, then you start to see the real person. When the real person shows up, and trust me, they won't show up until they get upset, mad, or whatever that looks like. When the real person shows up, that's the person you're supposed to believe. So like my man here, Roland, said, you need to give time. Wait until they reveal who they really are. What they bring to the table is totally irrelevant. You need to understand who that person is. You need to understand how that person behaves in adversity, and you need to understand how that person values you as well as themselves. Because if you are unhealthy psychologically and emotionally, you should not be involved with that person.
Well, how much of everything that we've talked about so far? I know Gamal touched on it, but how much of this do you think social media and or technology plays into this?
A lot.
If any.
I would say a big factor, because I used to say, well, I don't use it like that, but that's exceptionalism. That's taking you out. It's not being objective. So let's just say, if nobody up here on the panel use social media, but the people you have to interact with throughout the day, they're still influenced by it. So whether direct or indirect, people could get their biases from anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So if they bring their biases to your space and it goes against your morals and principles, you still have to deal with the second and third order effects of somebody else digesting social media. So I think social media has just changed the way we see each other. It's made it more transparent in areas that are a lot more glaring. But here's the other part. We choose to highlight what we want to highlight. And just like the negative is true, so is the positive. That's why, like, when you come up here and you have a conversation, like, wow, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't, it's a discovery moment where you could sit there and actually take in some information. Like, here's the positive. We're all here because of social media.
Absolutely.
So you can't have it both ways. But if you're doing it the right way, you can.
So
the only thing social media did was make people reach out, right? Because I'm assuming if you're in the right state of mind, which I think all of us are here, we know what we want. We're willing to compromise on certain things, and we're willing to not compromise on certain things. If a man is grounded, knows his purpose, knows what he's doing, and when I say building, he's building himself to become a better person, not mentally going through all his past traumas. I'm talking about moving forward. He's going to know, he's going to have that conversation with the woman he's bringing into his life because he doesn't want chaos. He knows what he wants as a man. He knows what he needs, and he knows what she's there for. And I believe you're going to have that conversation before moving her in. You're going to mess up just to see how she reacts. You're going to see how she talks to the waiter when you go out for dinner. You're going to see if she does all that ratchet shit. You're going to look for these things. You're going to look for red flags because you know you are so sound mind and body that you're going to look for, let me see how this girl operates. And I always say, how's your family? How do you react with people you don't know? How do you react with my friends? How do you, you're supposed to have this in an umbrella and make sure everything, all the boxes are checked. And then, okay, let's take it to the next level. Money has nothing to do with that.
See, I think, and I'm going to offer a different perspective. I agree with what you're saying. I believe that social media influences, but I think the preponderance of the population, I think social media just allows them a platform to exacerbate who they really are. That's all it is. And then they only follow the people that speaks their common language. Therefore, it's just a recycling of the same message. And then these people continues to boost up their ego about their message saying, you're right, you're true, that's right, I agree with you 100%. They do not necessarily, and I'm speaking in general formats now, they do not necessarily have the emotional elasticity to actually include themselves in conversations where somebody will actually challenge their perspective. So I will go as far as saying that, again, social media exacerbates who they really are. I agree it actually influences on some realm because some people just don't know. They'll just follow the group. And, the sheeple will always present themselves. But for the most part, it just exacerbated.
And not only are we talking about social media, we're also talking about technology. We also
That's
thinking
a lot
about
of ease.
Huh?
That's a lot of ease. Talking about exacerbate emotional elasticity. I think we done brought T.I. on this thing. Let me find out he ghostwriting your commentary.
Yeah, but we also go ahead, Gamal.
He done went full Georgia.
Oh no, go ahead. You were saying something. I was tuned into what you were saying.
Oh yeah, I was just saying it's not only social media but also technology. Like it's impacted the modern relationship in the fact that good or bad. Like the good things is that you can download an app and you can know exactly where your spouse is at all times. You know what I mean? At the same time, you can go buy this little chip that you can stick on your girl's or your man's vehicle, and you can track them down like that too. So technology has impacted the modern relationship just
That's
in
a thing?
general. And yeah, because you can buy, like I've seen the little commercials where it's like a little thing that you buy like it for
Air
your phone
tags.
or whatever. It's like a GPS tracker.
Are you
Yeah,
wow.
bro.
Yeah, hey
So
man,
like
you can monitor anything now.
yeah, so technology has impacted modern relationships in things like that. You know what I mean? To whereas, back in the day, you maybe could have gotten away with certain things, good, bad, or indifferent. But however, now it may be harder or easier. It's probably a whole bunch of people's like, man, they make one of them right now. Any women watching, they probably like, I ain't know about that. They're gonna go and get one for their man that they think.
Dog.
You know what I'm saying? They
Man,
taking notes.
privacy has taken a new level of priority in relationships. Privacy is look, man, like for some people, they have to have their significant other's phone. You know what I'm saying? For reasons based on insecurity that a lot of people may or may not be able to relate to, but it's so common that it's an indication of what takes place out there, outside of being out of a healthy relationship. If you out there being exploratory with relationships, because I'm not gonna pass judgment and say if it's good or bad or whatever, but like whatever you out there practicing and exploring, you're risking a lot of your privacy. You know what I'm saying? Like when you look at, man, look, prime example, Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez. You talking about technology impacting a relationship? Look at the way that played out. You know what I'm saying? When it came down to group chat messages and stuff like that. How many situations have we seen where, you know, some screenshots get passed around and it's a different conversation, you know what I'm saying, about people? So privacy has taken a different type of, turn. And I think you got to be very, very cautious about vetting where you say what. And it's a time and place for everything. But for some people, that might be a platform, you know, like between the different paid interactive sites that people talk about. What do you got? OnlyFans? What's the equivalent of that? You know, but because I'm sure it's not the only one, but people use technology where they can benefit from it the most. And some people use it to invade privacy, and some people use it to give their privacy away.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to that, like as far as technology, so you mentioned, you know, what you just mentioned, I would say convenience as well too. We're talking about apps. I mean, being able to order food from your phone and stay in the house and watch a movie and just be entertained, right? So you kind of lose that opportunity to go for a ride or even for a walk and have that solid connection, you know, and get to know that person a little bit better. So I definitely think, you know, convenience is another thing that has affected us as well too, and can impact the relationship unknowingly.
And social media is an extension of the television, or as they say, tell lies vision, or TV programming, because that's what it does. It programs you to think. That's why you have, during each show, every 12 minutes or so, you'll have something selling you something. You didn't want to buy no doggone Taco Bell. You don't even like Taco Bell, but the thing keep going ding. So you like, man, I'm gonna go pick up me a cheesy gordita crunch.
You order it. You gotta leave the house.
Yeah, or they can deliver it to you. And that's the same. It's the same way with social media. Like I follow my daughters, on the little phone thing. I know where they are at all times because of how society is. Not so I can say, oh, what you doing on this street? But I don't, anybody
it's
else.
Adapting. You can't take anything for granted. Like back in the day, you could leave sun up, sundown, and not be worried about your safety being compromised while doing something dangerous in a dangerous area. But like now, you look ridiculous saying that you don't have a phone. Like you missing a way to access the world without having a device. So the whole goal is balance. You know what I'm saying? Unless you plan to live off the grid and go without cell communication and being, while living in a first world country, you have to reduce your life to reflect that. You know what I'm saying? But most people have things they have to accomplish and they need access to a device, or something doesn't get done. Some people don't get provided for and deals don't happen. We have to communicate. It's not the device, it's the way we use the device.
Right.
It's no different than a weapon. See, like this is the same conversation that we have about gun control. You see what I'm saying? Like they'll tell you, hey, guns don't kill people. Stupid people with guns kill people. Whatever they want to do to talk about access to it. And what do we always come back to? Training. We always come back to repetition. You know what I'm saying? Use of the weapon, practical application of it. But we never talk about using information the same way or access to it. You see what I'm saying? So people come in with their insecurities and use the technology that feeds their insecurity instead of learning how to use the technology to transmute their insecurity into something that's more productive, something that's healthy, and something that benefits everybody around them. You see? So this is about understanding programming, understanding that somebody is scrapping up the worst parts of us and repackaging it and selling it back to us so we can be at each other's throats. These algorithms are about what we put into them, not what they just create. We have to do the things that make our environment reflect the commentary that we'd like to have. If you want to talk about more more about dogs and pony shows and stuff like that, then we have to go get into that particular niche, that particular community. If we want to see better outcomes and have better options, then we have to get people that want that same thing to have a reasonable conversation so we can move forward. And a
But
good
social
step
media-
toward all of this is buying my book. You see what
social
I'm
media,
saying?
social
Hey,
media, though.
chop that up, fam. Make sure you chop that up. You know,
They go to commercial.
Social media has made people believe they can have it all. It's so funny. They make people believe that it's easy to do this, it's easy to do that. You're prettier than you are. You're more handsome than you are. That's all. I mean, you gotta have some self-control, man. You know if you're ugly. I mean, you don't need anybody to tell you. Period. Right now, so you can go on social media and feel good about yourself, and hear somebody tell you you're pretty. But all social media really does is make you be able to reach out, make you think you can have it all, and meanwhile you can't. It makes you think that you can just become a YouTube star and make all this money, and you can't, because in the real world you have bills to pay, right? And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm in a relationship and I know any woman does a background check on me like that or puts anything, she's not coming home to me. I mean, she can come home to pack, but it's not like she's going to stay that night, right? Because we're not going to have a discussion about why you did it. The fact that you did it and you thought you needed to go there with the man that you have, we have nothing left to say. Just all I ask is that don't slam the door on your way out, because you know what, it's kind of expensive and shit.
see that whole conversation, that whole rant that Antoine just had, he made that up off of social media, and it just proves my point. This is how it's impacting modern relationships.
What? What are you talking about, dude? It's true. That's a fact. I ain't saying nothing.
No, I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying that you have a scenario that you can speak from that came from social media. All I'm saying is that everything you're saying makes sense. Don't passive aggressively agree with me. I'm agreeing with
you.
You
With that stupid passive aggressive shit. I never even was passive aggressive. When you talk passive aggressive, you're the one that's passive aggressive because you keep mentioning that shit. I'm just telling you my experience and what I believe. So you don't get that twisted. Don't put your words on me. You can look left or right. Just make sure you look at the camera after.
Now, when it comes to how men are in social media, I believe that social media, phones, and everything can be used for productive things, and they should be. But I also think that people understand people. Just like when we were growing up, I don't know about the younger ones, but when we were growing up, our fathers, our uncles, they had little magazines under the mattress and stuff. Or you would go and they had the little magazines covered, but you would go and take a peek and look at the centerfolds and stuff like that. Now you got it at the tip in your palm. So now a lot of people will just go to that, or they go to these sites. They go to Instagram, they go to OnlyFans, they go to TikTok, all these things. Because why? People putting it out there to be seen, because they get more followers. The more followers, the algorithm go up. Then they start to get paid. So they start to get paid. Now people jump on board. So now it's no longer hustler, playboy, and stuff like that. You on OnlyFans paying some chick so she can be in a t-shirt wet, paying her this money. Like, really? You that desperate? But that's certain people. I can't call people desperate for going there. Some people paying for it.
Yeah, I get that. I think I'm gonna piggyback off of what Coach said real quick, and then go ahead, Chris. Coach was talking about, and I think he was talking about people talking, people thinking they know everything about relationships, and they really don't know squat. You know what I mean? And a lot of people are, I look on social media, I look at some of the people who are making content about relationships, and a lot of them not married, never been married, had bad relationships. Some of the men, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, they may be speaking, but what I'm finding or what I see is that a lot of people who are getting relationship advice, they're getting it from bad resources. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that's how social media and technology is impacting modern relationships. Because like I said, if you don't know about relationships, and then you turn on YouTube University and you try to learn about relationships, but you're learning from the wrong people, the people who have never had a decent relationship. And then you're trying to apply that information, to your life and to every single situation. And I think those some of the things that's causing some of the problems.
Like this here. Now he wrote a book. Now information is good. I love information.
Yeah,
it's good. But information ain't perfect unless you use it a certain way, and it depends on the people. The book is a good book, and the information is good. He just went through a divorce, so you can't always look at the person and say, "Oh, he like everybody Will and Jada," and then they like to say, "Well, they swinging and all this other stuff."
Yep.
You got to be in. You got to have your feet in your relationship,
Yep.
not in somebody else's, because you're gonna have to work out your problems in your house, and your people ain't got Jada Pickett money. So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
I think the issue that we're having with social media and technology is that it's giving the loud minority the loudest voice. Everybody doesn't think like that, but if you see a certain thing so many times said by so many people, you start to think that there might be a ring to it. There's a lot of groupthink that's going on, and a lot of people don't know how to think like individuals. I can understand the whole social media conversation where it's you get what you give your attention to, but nowadays it's kind of being used as a cash cow, to be real. The whole fight, somebody's making money somewhere and it ain't us. That's why I said nobody's winning. Like, nobody's winning. So I think that might be a huge part of it. And as far as the men, I'm starting to see a change, and I'm starting to see the women do it slowly. But another big issue is we not telling those people to shut up because they don't represent what's real. We're not shutting them down. We're just letting them do it and spread the narrative. You understand what I'm saying? So it's going to take somebody. It's going to take somebody to make it cool again, to love again.
Look,
That's really it. It's going to take
that's
somebody
what-
popular and somebody
Yeah.
powerful to make it cool to love again. That's the only way the masses are going to follow. That's just what I've seen.
Point. Yeah.
I think we're doing that right now. You know, I think that if somebody's going to correct what we got going on in this society, it's got to be like men got to, like, again, men got to focus on men straight up. You know, we need to work with each other. We need to practice group economics. We need to support each other. We need to actually, you know, support each other's visions and take turns and build some real cohesion, because we have to show how to do it, you know, because again, yeah, I'm tired of complaints. I want to focus on solutions. That's what this panel is about. That's why everybody has brought something to this discussion, you know, this table, because it's, again, a 4-part series on something like this. We have a lot of momentum because we all came here with the right reasons and the right intent. You don't have to have a perfect plan, but your intent needs to be perfect. You know, like, we don't have the time to waste that a lot of people seem to believe that we do, you know, because opportunities to connect with people that can, you know, change your quality of life, or you change somebody else's, you don't get those that often. We've been around here long enough to know that you only meet a certain type of person within a certain space in your life, you know, whether they on the way or have gone, they serve the purpose at this point because you're still here. So we have to practice, you know, using technology to our advantage, because it has been used against us to miseducate more people about who you are than it has been done to use to promote you. And that's why you have to do the self-promotion. You have to go get the narrative, and you can't wait on the finish line across you. That's why you got to move your feet. So yeah, spinning your tires, arguing, and things of that nature. Reality is this: if women corrected women and men focused on correcting each other, we'd have different outcomes. We'd have different conversations.
Hey, just real quick, Uncle Junior. Chris, you brought the word love to the conversation. And when you bring the word love to the conversation, that dispels any adjective that you can put in front of the word relationship. Whether it's traditional or modern, what you're going to find is that once you introduce love to the topic of conversation, it's going to be a traditional relation. It's going to be a traditional relationship with a modern day appeal. And that's really what reality looks like. Because at the end of the day, everything evolves. So do you. So do we. And so I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. And so whoever I met back then, they probably said, well, he's a butthole. Yeah, they probably were right. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not the same person. And so that's what it looks like. So when you introduce love to the conversation, and you're right, brother, I'm not dispelling what you're saying. You're absolutely right. That's really where we should be focused on. if we focus on what that really is and understand what it is, then it brings every selfish conversation off the table and makes you more concerned about the other person.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. It's been a lot of good information, a lot of good things been said today, man. What we think some of the challenges? I know some of y'all on here married, some of y'all are single. I'd like to know, what are some of the challenges that y'all or other people that y'all may come in contact with face when it comes to like being in like modern type relationships.
I would say with just with any relationship, not necessarily just a modern. It's it could be a friendship, family member. The biggest thing that just I always go back to is always communication. Like you can't think that you have communication figured out. The way that I may communicate with one person on this call may be good, but me and someone else may not have the best communication. Right. So the way I communicate at work may be different the way that I communicate here on this call, even within a marriage. So I think really just beginning to truly understand the other person, figuring out what they want, letting them understand what you want, having regular check-ins as well too. So that's something I learned for just counseling. Having a check-in once a month with your significant other, so you can get things on the table, things that are going well or things that you want to work on. But I think we just got to continue to work on communication. So that's always going to be a challenge in any relationship.
Yeah, man. I 100% agree with the communication piece. Right? Like that is so important, in every like you said, every relationship. And this goes back, like even with the social media and stuff like this, the way you communicate with each other, those things are has evolved. When I first started communicating with women, it was on the phone, what I mean, call waiting and different things like that. Now, like I left my lunch at home today. So I text my wife, call my wife, and she was able to come and bring me my lunch. You know what I mean? So communicating like that. And yeah, I had something else to say about communication too, but I forgot. So go ahead, Chris.
I think s- speaking as somebody from the outside looking in, I think the biggest challenge that individuals might face, and I'm going to speak for the men, I think the biggest challenge that the men face in navigating modern relationships is that we were taught that we're not allowed to want something and we want something. And we're saying we want this. Can you give it to us now? Instead of settling for what they think we should have, or settling for what they think they should give us. We actually come with a set of standards. And I don't think the market is used to that. They're used to us taking whatever they give us. And we're saying no.
So I'm married and I've been with my wife for 8 years. So I'm not out there. I only, live, some of these topics and conversations just based off what I see off social media or associates, maybe how they live and stuff like that. So, and I always hear, men saying they want this. So what is it that these men like, what is it that they're wanting from these said women?
I mean, it varies. It varies. This is why the whole concept of modern relationship is so difficult to navigate, because it varies. It goes from man to man. There's no clear cut definition to what it is. From what I've heard, men want somebody.
I'm going to use you because you are a single man. So what is it
No,
that
shoot.
you want in the model? Or if you want to keep it on a friend or something like that, that's fine too. No press. Don't feel like you have to be on you. But I was just saying, since you are in this situation, or either Antoine, you know what I mean. You're if you want to take it off you, that's fine, and go to
No,
Antoine. But
I
if
can I
not,
can
then
I can put it on me. All I want is a woman who's healthy, who knows how to be a girl, who's nice to me, whether she's around me or she's out and about, who's willing to work with me to build something bigger than us, because the relationship is not about any individual when you're supposed to be building for something bigger than the two of you. I want a woman that understands that at the end of the day, you have an opinion, But if we take it to the point where I give you my last name, ultimately I'm going to have veto power because I'm responsible for you now. And since I'm a single man with no kids, I don't want to date a woman with kids. There's 4 different reasons why I won't do that, but I'll get into that later.
All right, Chris, I got a question for you. All right, so those are your conditions, right? What if what would you be open to the conditions that that particular young lady may have? All right, and then what happens over time if communications goes south and the conditions that you have are no longer met?
If the conditions that I have are no longer met, then we have a conversation about the conditions that I have not being met. Just like if I'm not living up to the expectation that she has when she's coming into this, knowing the type of man that I am, I'm going to have to take that into consideration.
And
It's not all, like I said, it's not all about me. It's not all about her. It's all about equivalent exchange. This is what I want. Can you give it to me? This is what you want. Okay. Do you think I'm the man that can give it to you? If I am, let's try to make this work. If I'm not, don't hold me up. Because I'm not going to hold you up if you're not giving me what I want. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, and I'm just like just like Unc, I'm married as well too. Do you feel like in this modern day it's hard to find that, to get that?
The women without kids component is the hardest.
Fuck. Let me tell you, man. They all come with a mini me. Holy shit. Whew. God damn, man. Finding a fresh one to build with, that's fucking hard. Trust me on that. As a single man dating, that's the first thing I ask. Do you have kids and do you want kids? The minute I say yes, Lord have mercy. I know what box I'm putting her in. Right? Because I'm telling you, any man doing well in life ain't taking care of another man's mistake. Hell freaking no. For what?
Okay. I'm going to break this down.
Why would you want to take on somebody else's load with so many more viable, fresher options out there? That's like walking into a grocery store and looking for the fruit that's damaged. Why would you pick that up? Like, why?
I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it all the way down as to why men without children don't want to date women with children. And I'm going to speak as a product of a single mom home. 1, I'll never be a priority like she wants me to make her a priority. Her child is always going to come first. And they should, because no man should ever come before somebody that came out of your body. That man will automatically, but on the same token, that man is going to want time too. And that man isn't always going to want you to have to figure some things out for a third party to do something. So that's the selfish side of it. The second part of it is, if you make me a priority over your child, I'm going to dump you because I shouldn't be. I was a product of that. I was the kid that my mom let sit by the wayside once she found a man. I was a son husband until she got a husband. I won't respect you if you do that. Number 3, unless the father of the child is deceased, I will always have to deal with another man in my relationship. And I ain't trying to do that. That man, no matter what the courts say, that man can come into my relationship and say, I don't like the way this is working. And I ain't got no choice but to eat that shit because those are his kids and not mine. Number 4, there's this law called the Equitable Parenting Act. Look it up. In some states, you have to be married. In some states, you just have to have a substantial relationship. But if you are married for over 5 years to a woman who previously had a kid, or you are in a relationship with a woman that previously had kids, and that child looks at you as a father figure, that woman can take you to court for child support. So it's dangerous for me to date a woman with kids. It's not financially lucrative for me to date a woman with kids. And the state can hold me responsible for kids that didn't come out my ball sack. I ain't trying to go through that. So just to alleviate all of that, I'm just going to not date women with children. It's not because I hate them. I'm a product of one. But there are too many factors that are against me to do it.
But
that's why. And that's the majority of the men. That's the majority of the men out here. They look at it just like this. It's dangerous for men without children to date women with children unless you don't want none. And I want kids.
But look at all what you had to list. Look at that list you had to go off of. I mean, seriously? Like, you had to name all that. It's like, why even put yourself in that position?
That's my
You know what I
point.
mean? It's like
That's my point.
you work so hard to get to a certain level, and you achieve certain goals, and you do this and you do that. Why wouldn't you want something fresh? That's something that only what comes out of that woman was yours. Like, men need to build these things. It takes hard work to get what you want, right? I mean, the first thing, I don't think a man should hold back on how he talks to his woman. I think she should be able to tell her everything, how he feels, what looks good, what doesn't look good, what he likes, what he don't like. Control the tone on how he says it, because you're not attacking her, but he should be able to express himself fully, right? You have things at your age when you're ready to get married. You're not going to compromise. You're not going to change. You're not. These are things that you set forth. And especially if you've established yourself, you have certain things and certain things you build for. But if you're a man and you're going into a relationship, you don't want no headaches. You want it to be as clean and as fresh as possible. And the communication part has to be key. Things don't change over time about, you don't really communicate with her anymore. Well, that's on you. You're making the mistake as a man, not communicating clearly your needs and your wants to woman. And it's her mistake to not be able to tell you everything she wants to tell you. Your woman should be able to walk up to you and say, I don't like what you're doing. You're disrespecting me. And you have to shut the fuck up and listen to her, because she has every right to do so, because she's doing her part and her role as a woman. That's all I'm saying. And Chris is right. If a woman has listen, can you really give somebody else's child one of these? No, you really can't. I mean, you can't really discipline the child the way you want to. And there's really no benefit in having someone else's kid that you're taking. There's none. Because she can do whatever she wants, anytime she wants, when it comes pertaining to that child. So no man should disrupt his peaceful life to make unpeace. Like, no. So that's one thing I have to agree with Chris on 100%. There's too many check boxes, man. No way. I know about you, but I go into a grocery store squeezing each fruit to make sure I get the hard one.
No, Jesus Christ.
I have no problem putting that one back.
You can't clean that one up, Coach. Don't do it.
I wasn't going to try. I was processing.
You can't make bad news sound pretty, boy.
I told you, man. Look, Antoine talked 2 minutes too long. You see what happened?
Yeah.
Now I can't even repeat it because I would catch myself up. You won't get me.
Hey, we need the showtime at the Apollo Hook.
Get him out of here.
Sandman.
Hey, but just for the record, I'm the man that believes one man's trash is definitely not another man's treasure. So I'm still the man that believes that. Just like you're nuts.
So
As long as it's hard.
Let's say you got into a relationship and you had a kid. You got married. You had a kid. Everything was beautiful for 5 years, and things didn't work out. Right now, you're back on the market again, and you're single. Are you expecting a woman to accept you and your kid that you have?
I had that conversation with her because I tell her straight, you ain't coming before my kid. Period. It ain't happening. Like I'm telling you right now, if it's a burning house, I'm not taking you up first. Like that's not going to be a discussion. I'm taking care of business first with my child. You ain't the one I'm escorting down the stairs. I'll come back and get you, but you ain't the one I'm escorting down the stairs. I'm telling her straight up. Just like a woman should tell me that straight up. If she wants me to discipline, don't discipline. Unless the man's dead, then I'm cool. Then she may have a possibilities. But like Chris says, her child should come way before me. Period.
Can I say something? Because I know I've been silent a lot and just listening to the conversation. And I think that we've been talking about a modern relationship one way, one-sided, as if the damn thing is fully negative, and it's not. We live in a time where people live longer. So that means that relationships don't have to be final. If the damn thing ain't working out, be smart and get out of it. And I don't think that that's a bad value. I think that that's a current value. I think the other issue is that, you know, you can have children later in life. A modern relationship, you can have children later in life. I think another positive aspect of it is that you can get married later in life and you got choices. And so I think one of the reasons I've been kind of silent is because at least I felt like it's been almost like this negative slant on what a modern relationship could be. And I don't believe that. You know, I don't agree with that in the sense that that's the only way that it is. Then when I think about, I mean, I know, you know, we've been talking about sisters in particular, you know, and women, you know, and men too. I think about my grandmother who was married to my grandfather for 53 years before she died. And she trained me by the time I was 8 that if I was single and then having one in my life, I wouldn't need one. So another thing I like about modern people is that they're courageous enough to be them damn selves and be who they want to be. Now, I do think that we live in a time that's different where people are more selfish. But I think that some of that is because people were forced to do things for a long time that they didn't want to do. So I think one thing about relationships in the past is a lot of people did ideal things and probably weren't ideal for them. So while, you know, I was raised by my grandparents, so I have the old ideals of staying and being and tolerating and embracing. But I was also raised in the Tupac era, and I'm glad I grew up in the 90s. And where choice is something that I know that I was pissed that I didn't have as a child, and I'm glad to have it now. And so I think that that's a modern thing. And I think that a sign of the modern part is that we're struggling with that, is that some people think that you shouldn't have a choice. Some people think that you should. And I'm not talking about abortion. I'm talking about the choice to stay in or get out. You know, the choice to say that if I'm getting what I want and if I don't want, then I can move. And I think that's the other thing that I like about modern relationships is that in a lot of ways, if you communicate that, you might be able to get out in a positive way without depleting yourself if you need to. And I think there are some who are holding on to things of the past who probably, I put it like this: the past don't work for Dr. Easley, so I don't care about that. Even though my grandparents had that, I don't want their relationship, so I don't really give it about that. I'm more of a now person. Choices, options, making the choice to be faithful if you want to, and of course, I hope that you do, making the choice to stay in. But if I don't want to stay in, you know, like get out, don't bring drama to people. And I just think that there was less of that in the past because people did almost like what they had to do or what they were made to do or what they were told to do. So I think that's the only thing that I wanted to add, that I think that I didn't feel like the modern relationship was getting a positive slant or spin. And I just wanted to add that positive spin to it. Now we can go back to the other part and I can listen to what people can or can't do, what the list are, so on and so forth. But you know, modern freedom. I can say that whether Will and Jada are doing, hey, whatever one, I don't care. But the fact that now we do have options of having different kind of relationships, I like that. You know, just to be honest with you, I actually dig that. And I still came from being married, staying together for the rest of your life. I think that's a little crazy, but you know, you work to do it. And then I say this and then I shut up for real. For some people, what used to work is what still work for them. Kudos for you. And for some people, what's coming and what's, you know, evolving and become now is works for them. So kudos to them. And I kind of think that that's also, you know, something that I think that we should do. And that's what I like when Antoine is talking, is because he's saying things that works for him. And then we try to make it work, maybe because we're in relationships where some of us maybe have not vocalized or asserted ourselves like that. But what I appreciate is that because I do what he does, you know, and I know that people can take it when you do that. But I think that people who are not accustomed to that are pissed off and agitated in their relationship because they can't speak their mind and because they don't. So on that, I'm just going to hit pause and say I'm going to keep listening and learning. But I wanted to add that positive spin to it.
I like what you said also, Doc. But I think that one of the things, like I can agree with Antoine's open and honest dialogue with his significant other. But when it comes to viewing the other person as damaged because they aren't where you think they should be, is where it's kind of, you know, it's a line there, because somebody And I wouldn't even call a child a mistake. Something happened and something came from that, the fruit of whatever happened. So with you, you never hear anybody talk about, well, the baby daddy being damaged. It's always the mother. She's damaged. She's that she one man's trash is another man's treasure. No, see, and that's the mindset that I want to get out of. No matter what she's gone through, you need to see her for who she is now, just like somebody just said. See her for who she is now, not what she's gone through, not what she's been through, who she's been with. If you're trying to be with her, gauge where she is now. Now, if it's you got the right. Everybody has the right to say, "Hey, I don't want to be with nobody with no kids," and that's a plus. You know, that's no problem. You upfront about it, and you're not playing with her feelings and emotions, and that's a good thing. But I don't think we should view anybody, male or female, as trash versus treasure or whatever. It's just something I would tolerate and some things I won't.
So, as I said earlier, personal preference is a thing, and everybody has the right to their own personal preference. But going back to your question, if I may, Garfield, if you can kind of run it by again, because I want to make sure I'm giving honor to it. Some of the challenges that individuals may face when navigating modern relationships, I kind of talked about in the beginning. There is no true definition, so they don't know how to behave in it. So when you ask a person, like, what is it that you're looking for? I can give you my personal preference. And then another person can have their personal preference. And Gamal asked the question, say, yeah. So if you say that this is what your personal preference is, are you open to hearing what the other person's personal preference is as well? Absolutely. But guess what? After I hear it and I don't agree with it, that's it. It's a wrap. So what you have is the confusion. Well, I want a relationship, I want a relationship, I want a relationship. But then what ends up happening, personal preferences collide. And then the next thing is that there are no more good women or there are no more good men out there. No, you just can't find nobody who meets your personal preference because case in point, you haven't worked on yourself long enough so that you can be what your personal preferences are. And that's the thing that I have witnessed and talked with several people about to help them get to that level. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Again, personal preference is a thing, but the modern relationship is not clearly defined. And there is no source document that tells you that you or me are not the most important person in the relationship, but the relationship itself is more important than all of us. And if that's the case, we need to focus on what is right and not who is right. And in a modern day relationship, it's all about who is right. And then we're going to argue that point, and then we're going to get to the point to where we're just going to say, hey, you know what? I'm done. And before you know it, we done been married 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and then say, well, we're looking for a relationship again. You're a serial relationship killer.
Yeah, man, most definitely. Hey, man, I appreciate so far everything you guys have said, man. Thank you to the people that's been in the chat. Thank you to everybody who has been watching at home. We're gonna close out here in a few minutes with our final thoughts. But before you do, go ahead and hit that like button. We're gonna start off with Gamal, and then we're just gonna go around the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So, positive spin. So, if I had to give some advice or some feedback, so we talked about the impacts of social media. What we can do is just like we fast our bodies for food, we can fast on social media. You can do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. You can do be on the weekends, be off Monday through Friday, but just purely understand the influence and the impact that it can have on you as well too. And then the last thing I'll leave you with that the basis of relationship is really just based on communication. Your ability to communicate and understand others, and as long as you continue to work on that, you may still the answer is you still may, right, not definitively, could potentially have a successful relationship. So communication is key.
I guess I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. We need each other. Bottom line, we need each other more than mainstream media and social media will let you believe. We need each other. The men want something, the women want something. We need to figure out how to make this work. The cornerstone of any community is the family. And in order to have a family, you got to build relationships. And in order to build relationships, you got to think about something that's bigger than the both of you, because that's what it's really about. So I'm going to just leave it at that.
I think I would have to say, instead of focusing on what we consider the negatives of past or present relationships and how they did it and didn't do it, you should look at the positive. You should see what works for you in your relationships, and then when you find out what works for you, because it's nobody else's relationship, you can read all the books, you can watch all the movies, you can think you're gonna be Cliff and Claire, but one thing about it, you ain't Cliff and your wife's not Claire. So find what works for you and work on your relationship. It is work. That's it.
Anything worth having requires energy and requires effort. And I think that so much wisdom was shared today here by these kings. I just put two rules together: the platinum rule and the golden rule. If you're going to be in any time of a relationship, whether it's past or modern, treat people like you want to be treated. That way, if you're mature enough to articulate how you want to be treated, you can share with them when they're not doing it, and you can applaud them when they're doing it. Then you have the platinum rule: treat them like they want to be treated, which means that now you're investing in them and learning from them. So you're doing for them what they want. And when you can meet in the middle and one hole meets another hole, it's just one big hole. And in that way, that's a complete body. And so that's the only thing that I'll say. Combine those golden and platinum rules because you're worth it and they are too. Peace.
I would say my final thought is this: for me, social media is a great thing. I think it's a great tool. I think you can get so much information out of it. I think you can learn a lot from it and gain a lot from it. But it also has to be something that you know what's real and what's not, right? Because you have common sense and you need to use your common sense. It's like any addiction. You know when it's becoming an addiction, but don't let it control your life. It's a source of information. I didn't have it growing up. Sometimes I wish I did. Maybe I would have made different choices, but it's a powerful tool. As far as, listen, this is our first part of the relationship thing. I'll say this: as far as relationships are, I'm big on communication. I don't believe in sugarcoating anything when it comes to telling my significant other something, and I don't think she should have any fear in telling me anything, or any man in any relationship. She should be able to walk up and you should be able to have that open communication. And when I say that, I don't mean it in a malicious way. You should be able to just say it. You can't make bad news sound pretty. It's still bad news, but you can also make, have that conversation that there's no problem, right? Because there's never a good time to tell somebody. The time is when you thought about it. And as far as finding someone, first of all, build the life you want for you. Okay, be selfish that way. You build your life. You become the man you want to be and continue becoming that man. So then you can pick and choose and have the type of woman that fits your lifestyle and what you want. You'll be able to, get what you want as a man in a relationship. If you want a dime, you want this, you want that, you'll have choices. But first you have to be able to back up what you're saying. You have to be able to stand your ground. You have to be able to say, listen, this is what I've built. This is what I'm offering you. This is who I am as a man. And you're coming into my life and I'm coming into yours. But these are things that I do and who I am to become the man that I am. And I'm not compromising that. And once you know where the boundaries are and the communication is, it's easier to put that square into a square peg. That's all I'm going to say.
All right, tonight's discussion was pretty great, but for me, everything comes back to having a personal code. So, accountable masculinity rule number 1 is men focus on men. You need to establish a personal accountability standard so you can function amongst other accountable men, so we can improve our society. Create solutions for the benefit of our society by only discussing tangible outcomes based on our skills and networks. That requires a lot of ego management, self-improvement, so we can mitigate the conflict, the unhealthy competition between being right and righteous. And that's what the basis of this conversation is about. We need better expectation management, and we need to know and appreciate adequate sacrifice. Coach brought up earlier that a lot of people haven't worked on themselves enough to understand the beauty of compromise and how to use their emotional intelligence for something positive instead of looking for the negative. Situation awareness, using your feelings and emotions to read the room rather than to excommunicate your partner. In this process, as you start vetting behavior, because behavior is what this is all about, not necessarily the person, which is what I like about Roland. If you can change your behavior and add value, then we can't judge you for where you started. Only if it's rooted in something positive. Because if we try to restrict ourselves to who we see that person used to, like who they used to be, we're doing ourselves a disservice, because we could benefit from that as a whole, because we still need leadership from people that have credible experience. Get a good understanding of history and economics. Your relationships go according to what you can afford, and that's just reality. If you look at what people can afford, you can correlate the chaos with that as well. It's delusional to be unrealistic about where you place that in history and economics as it pertains to your relationships. And see, you need to be flexible and be able to adapt to your environment. That's where the history and economics piece is so important. And when in doubt, always follow accountable masculinity rule number 1: focus on yourself, because we all have the power to create problems, solutions, and opportunity. All things are true. Go lead. Subscribe to the Unkle Junior Network and follow Elevated Dialogue. And most importantly, at the end of this, buy my book. Hey man, plug that up.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to sound repetitive. I think life's journey is all about personal development. So for me, I could never be with somebody who has the desire to be complacent. I think everybody has a responsibility to grow and develop within themselves. I want to kind of go back to what you heard earlier. I believe what everyone should be doing in any type of relationship that you're in, you should be honest with yourself, and so that you can be honest with other people, and you should also be open minded enough to understand that my way isn't always the right way. I need to get to the point so I can hear what the other person is saying, process what they're saying, and then compare it to what it was I'm saying and what it is I'm thinking. Also, boundaries are healthy. So establish boundaries. Just create boundaries within the scope of relationship. If we do not establish boundaries, then you're just going to have a relationship that really is going to get to the point to where it doesn't look like a relationship at all. What do I mean when I say that? I mean that first and foremost, in order to establish boundaries, we have to be good communicators. But here's the deal: communication, again, is one of those continual things. I don't care how good you think you communicate, everybody can communicate better. So make sure that you're continuing to evolve in your communication efforts. And I would say, last but not least, I don't care what adjective you put in front of a relationship is a team. And where I think a lot of us go wrong is that we don't necessarily understand team dynamics, right? So what we have to do is understand the stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, and performing, right? When we actually do that and identify that the relationship is more important than my ability, or my ability to be right versus another person's ability to be right, then we will focus on what is right for the team. And I think that's pretty much the best way to look at it.
Folks, y'all heard it here. We've been chopping it up for the last hour and 35 minutes. The first week of the 4-part series. Make sure you guys tune in next week. Same time, same bad place. This Friday, Empowering Perspective podcast. Check it out over on Coach's channel. Code Talk. Whenever that gets started back up. Hint, hint. Antoine got things going on. Gamal, Chris, Roland, Dr. Evelyn, everything. Go out and buy everybody's book. All right. About 10 people up here got about 75 books. So go out and buy
Hint,
them.
hint,
Huh?
hint. Get your book too. Come on.
Oh, that's coming. Probably I ain't gonna say when. Probably definitely. I'm gonna put it right here. Definitely by 24. Boom. Said you heard it
Hey,
here first. My book will be out definitely by 2024. So there you go. You hit it. We out. See y'all next week.